Welcome everybody. Please take your seats, get yourselves comfortable, and we shall begin in 1 minute.
Okay.
Yes, we are good, Alison.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the trustees of the Honor Frost Foundation, I'd like to welcome you to our annual lecture this evening. In times of such despair and gloom, it's particularly welcome to be able to celebrate. And at the Honor Frost Foundation, we're very excited to have reached our 10th birthday, a true milestone for any charity. Honor Frost, whose legacy demonstrates that she left little to chance, was very clear about her mission for the trustees appointed in her will. The endeavour to fulfil her wishes to support maritime archaeology in the Eastern Mediterranean has been, I believe, both a challenge and a delight for us all. As directed by her legacy, we have focused on funding education, making grants for research, and on furthering education both in and about the region. We have established the first university course teaching maritime archaeology in Lebanon. We've given grants for 3 postdocs, 12 PhDs, 13 MAs, and 5 postgraduate diplomas, as well as awarding more than 160 bursaries to students and early career maritime archaeologists. We've supported grants, both large and small, for research in Lebanon, Cyprus, Egypt, Sicily, Malta, and beyond. And as some of you may have heard, we're co-funding the deepest ever maritime excavation off the coast of Malta. We've carried out rescue missions for the Director of Antiquities in Lebanon to document maritime archaeology at risk. And in order to further assist with the rebuilding of the city of Beirut after the terrible explosion in August 20, we're supporting the documentation of maritime archaeology of the entire history of the port of Beirut. We've funded several conferences and workshops, most recently in Marsala, to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Honor's excavation of the Phoenician ship. And finally, we're restoring one of the Ottoman houses on the harbour of Beirut, where in the future we'll have an office and a conference centre to further our work in the region. In addition, the Foundation plays a dynamic role in supporting various international policy forums, ensuring that maritime cultural heritage is firmly on the agenda. And we support outreach activities, providing opportunities for children and young people to engage in learning about their maritime cultural heritage, because, who knows, this may lead to them becoming the maritime archaeologists of the future. We have quite a story to tell, and Lucy Blue, our Maritime Archaeological Director, is now going to tell you more, and I'm delighted to hand over to her now. Lucy, thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Mark, for hosting us. And I'm also looking forward to hearing from the 3 scholars that we've invited, who I'll introduce afterwards. So I'm just going to really add a bit of meat to Alison's introductory speech and talk a little bit more about the achievements of the Foundation 10 years on. It's really exciting, as Alison says, that we've got to the 10th anniversary, and I'm very proud to be working for the Foundation and for Honor's legacy, building maritime archaeological research capacity in the Eastern Mediterranean. Thank you all very much for attending. But effectively, it wouldn't have happened without this wonderful woman who was truly a pioneer of maritime archaeology. And it's her legacy and her endowment that has allowed us to take her work forward in the region of the Eastern Mediterranean. The foundation was set up, as we know, 10 years ago. It's based in the British Academy, and most importantly, the mission, as Honours will dictated, is to promote the advancement of research, including publications of maritime archaeology, with a particular focus on the Eastern Mediterranean, and specifically Lebanon, Cyprus and Syria, and now we very much include Egypt in that equation. And this map on the right was actually produced by Honor, so she very clearly knew which area she was hoping the foundation would work. But I want to just reflect a little bit on how much we have grown over that period of time in the last 10 years. It's quite incredible, actually, what leaps and bounds we've taken. And I hope that is reflected in the region. When I talk to partners in the region, they certainly corroborate that. Let's just look at first at the people. Obviously the trustees were appointed by Honor herself. In fact, there was a seventh person who retired shortly after the sale of the artwork. But when we were first set up, and this is my predecessor, Joan Porter McIver, was the Maritime Archaeological Director, with one administrative and finance lady, the lovely Rebecca. Now, 10 years on, we have our core UK-based staff, myself as the Maritime Archaeological Director, and Lauren, who's also a maritime archaeologist dealing with a whole range of different grants and projects, and Gail and Neelam, who really, without them, we couldn't survive through the admin and finance. And then we've also set up a publications arm, which I'll talk about in a bit, and Miranda Richardson is the editor. But not only do we have teams in the UK, in its broader sense, and France and beyond, but also we have set up a team in Lebanon. I think this has been a really successful action that we've taken. So headed up by Dr. Lucy Saman, but with a team of maritime archaeologists, including Nassim Rad, who's primarily dealing with activities in the American University of Beirut, and various people who deal with maritime, with diving or marine geophysics and geoarch, etc. So we have this incredible team in Lebanon who are working hard all the time when feasible. So, I mean, just looking at the scale of who is directly involved with the foundation, that shows growth. Just to remind you the sorts of things that we do, as Alison reminds us, small grants and large grants, predominantly around these particular themes, usually up to in the region of £1 million a year. And you'll see through the course of this lecture, how much we've actually spent. I want to sort of focus on 4 key themes to sort of highlight some of the growth and the exciting activities that the foundation has been involved with over the last 10 years. But primarily this all feeds into this idea of building capacity in the region. All of these things are about essentially instilling stability for maritime cultural heritage and building regional stewardship to protect, preserve, promote research maritime archaeology in the region. So obviously the primary thing that we support and we've spent most money on is research, and that takes many different forms, and you can see them all listed here, and many of you are maritime archaeologists, so I don't need to tell you the types of things that we do. We very much work with partners in the region, and these are some of the key ones in Cyprus, Egypt, and obviously HFF Lebanon, and also the regional authorities. To date, and I'm making comparisons between the annual lecture I gave in 2016-17, we have grown to giving grants to over 250 research projects, small and large, which is, quite a remarkable feat over a 10-year period. I'm not going to delve into all of the detail relating to the research, because effectively the last 9 years of annual lectures, presentations have been delivered by many of our key researchers that we support, and some of them are seen here in partners like Timmy Gambin in Malta and Stella Domestica in Cyprus and Imad in Egypt. But this just shows you also how much money we've spent, but also the distribution of the awards across the region, including the small grant award that we give to the British Academy, and also awards given to developing the discipline more generally, which is not unsubstantial in terms of its the scope and also the countries involved. I'm going to focus more on the other three items of the agenda: the education and training, and dissemination, publication, and also things relating to policy and management. I'm going to start more with training. Alison hinted at a couple of the types of projects we've been supporting, including NAS training. Thank you, Mark. Regionally, we've been teaching people to dive, archaeologists predominantly to dive. We're very cognitive of the lack of conservation facilities in some of the countries. We offer bursaries to students from and early careers from the region. So there's quite a range of activities, both online and in situ, obviously reacting to COVID. Some of those training activities are visible here, particularly the field school in Cyprus and dive and NAS training in Lebanon. And here are some of the images of students having fun underwater and on land and listening to lectures, etc., and some of the numbers. But I think probably the more substantial contribution that the foundation has made has been obviously with our bursaries, but really importantly to scholarships. As Alison mentioned, we now support scholarships at undergraduate, master's, doctoral and postdoctoral levels in a number of institutions, both in the UK, Europe and beyond, listed here. And I think in terms of the numbers of people, okay, here are some of the bursaries, as Alison mentioned, over 160 bursaries, but scholarships, we now have 25 masters, 11 doctoral students, postdocs, 39 students either have been completed HFF scholarships on all these different levels or are still ongoing. And this shows you where the relative distribution of the educational, the education is being, or where the people are coming from that are being educated, whether it's in country or abroad. And that equates to quite a substantial investment by the foundation. This also includes the recently established, well, not so recent anymore actually, undergraduate minor in marine science and culture at the University, American University in Beirut. So again, I think this is really, as Alison was indicating, this is the core of, I think, what we're doing. If we want to have a sustainable future in the region, then we need experts, and we need a range of experts with a range of skills. And so hopefully this is really building the future of maritime archaeology in the Eastern Mediterranean. Just a brief reference to the new course in marine science and culture. I know Nasim's going to mention this in the subsequent, but this is not just setting up this program in the AUB, but it's also offering opportunities to students from across Lebanon. So we offer scholarships, 3 or 4 a year, to students from the Lebanese University to partake in this minor, and that has driven real success. We've got a lot of students who've gone on currently doing courses in different parts of the world, working with our team in Lebanon, etc. Moving on then to management, protection and policy. Again, you can see how some of the activities, this isn't covering everything, but it's just to give you a flavour of the sorts of things that we get involved with. And I think pretty much everything here I will explore in a bit more detail. As you can see, a big investment has been made in HFF Lebanon, and I think that is one of our most successful projects. I'm really proud of the work that the team are doing there and the impact they're really making. It was designed to help support the DGA, the Director of Antiquities, part of the Ministry of Culture, recognising that there was no capacity in Lebanon within their department to deliver and support maritime archaeology. And this is making a real difference with the team working, and here they are, on targeted projects in advance of development. So they're going and doing survey in the coastal zone underwater with marine geophysical surveys. This gives you an idea, and I'm not going to tell you where all these projects are or what exactly the archaeological finds were. Hopefully we'll hear from the team quite soon in the future, but they've made a real impact, and we have a much greater understanding now of the archaeological signature of maritime archaeological signature in the region, through to the latest marine geophysical survey and TIRE that we were able to conduct this year. Obviously, activities have been a bit reduced in the last few months. One of the particular projects I'd like to draw your attention to is the Modern Shipwreck project. This is a very exciting project documenting relatively recent wrecks as a method of documentation, but also monitoring the way that they are degrading on the seabed. But because they're relatively recent, because they're very tactile, it's also a very good way of getting local divers, local dive groups, but also local communities interested in a relatively modern maritime heritage, but one which engages them with our more deep and distant maritime past. So I'm very excited by this project, and it's one that we've been able to keep going actually through all the challenges that particularly Lebanon has faced in the last few months and years. Another exciting project that has recently come to an end is the Cyprus Coastal Archaeological project. This time we took a different approach. We actually we gave the funding to the Department of Antiquities in Cyprus, and they employed a team, set up a database and established a GIS. And this was basically trying to collate our understanding of all the coastal resources and underwater archaeological sites around Cyprus. This has built up a substantial GIS database, and the plan is to build on that in the future, targeting areas to do research to understand in more detail the maritime archaeological signature of the island. A similar project was conducted some years ago now, commissioned through the Universities of Ulster and Southampton, basically building up remotely, obviously, a database GIS of all the coastal and underwater sites of the Syrian coast. This also identified threats and some 330 sites, and this has been shared. You can access this on our website, but it's also shared with the local authorities. Again, this is all about building up an understanding of the resource, because unless we understand what's really there, what the archaeological component is and where the threats lie, then we can't really start to mitigate or build an understanding of our management strategies for the future. And that is very much mirrored. Again, I know Nasim's going to mention this in the Beirut port project. As Alison mentioned, this is a reaction to the tragic explosion in August 2020. And the Beirut port project, in conjunction with the DGA, the Director General, and support from EMENA, and very much driven by Nasim and the lovely Sayantani, has building up a really interesting and intricate picture of the archaeology of the port of Beirut and its historical and in ancient context. Another thing that we do very much, not in the region, but very much focusing, hopefully, particularly in relation to policy, on building and understanding and development of policy in the region, is the Honor Frost Foundation Steering Committee on Underwater Cultural Heritage. This was initially set up to try and what's a polite way of saying kicking ass in terms of our UK government's responsibility towards the UK ratification of the UNESCO Convention, policies relating to maritime archaeology in this region. It was headed up by, the chair is Barry Cunliffe, and Anthony Firth was very active in its early years. But he, together with the committee, put together a number of policy documents which addressed particular issues, all geared towards trying to improve management and protection of the underwater cultural heritage. And this had resonance way beyond the shores of the British Isles. And these wonderful documents that have been produced, which are really, they're so useful, succinct, to the point guidance for people responsible. We've had a series of policy forums from which these documents were produced, and we're planning another one next year in the Eastern Mediterranean. So really honing in and focusing on the issues and requirements and challenges in the region. We've also been very supportive of the UN Ocean Decade Heritage Network, and we continue to support them. Again, Anthony was involved, but now Athena Trakadas is heading up that, and they've just recently been very successful in securing a first framework program as part of the Ocean Decade initiative, really putting cultural heritage in the equation, which, as we probably know, is rarely the case. So congratulations to that team, and I think HFF's support has made a real difference there. Finally, because I'm very aware that it's not all about Lucy. Dissemination and publication, and gosh, has that taken off recently. We're all been stuck in our little offices. Here I still am in mine. And we've been thinking about, well, how can we keep this momentum going? How can we communicate with people, sharing the importance of maritime archaeology? Some of those are in situ, like conferences and workshops, but there's been a lot of virtual activity over the last 2 years. And I'd like to share some of those with you. Again, you can see the proportional amounts of money. One of the most successful things that I think we've done is set up an HFF publication research and general series. This was established in 2018. And we're very lucky to have Miranda Richardson as our editor, and I think Sidestone Press are a fantastic publisher. The principle behind this is to have downloadable, freely available material, so anybody with the right internet access can access material, read it online, download for a small fee, or even have hard copy. And we've already published in the Footsteps of Honour. You can see that there. It was our first publication as a part project of the conference in 2017. We've also published Under the Mediterranean, which was the more academic side of it. And today I'm very happy to announce that Nick Fleming's book, Apollonia on My Mind, has just been launched, and we've got some other publications in the pipeline. So lots of activity there, and many thanks to Miranda for really pushing that forward. But with other publications that we've supported, I'm not going to include all of them, but this really important reader in Arabic for maritime archaeology, and smaller projects around, well, it's not small in the case of IJNA. We provided quite a lot of support in the development grant and subsequent for the continuity of IJNA. So very exciting development about communicating and publishing results. And we also have an online platform for smaller reports. And I think this is really important because you can't survey, excavate, whatever, without actually, getting your data out there. We've also set up, I'm very happy to say, through the University of Southampton Hartley Library, a Maritime Archaeological Special Collections. This is the first of its kind in the world. It was launched in March 2018. The library do an excellent job at preserving and hopefully future digitizing, but we're already building up a cohort based around Honours Archive, and here you see some wonderful examples. If you ever have the opportunity, I would encourage you to go and explore this archive. It is so exciting. But we've built more: Lucian Bash, Sean McGrail, Toby Parker, Nick Fleming, and soon others. So we really see this as a go-to resource for maritime archaeology in the region and beyond. We've had other projects and interview projects. There's also an archive fellowship, which I would encourage people to apply for, so you can actually have money to, have fun in the archive. And this is all leading towards this sort of building up an understanding of our discipline and exploring research agendas that can feed into that. Conferences and workshops. Hope a number of you probably attended the HFF conference in Cyprus in 2017, and we are excited to announce the forthcoming conference in Malta in 2022, in April 2022. Thank you very much to Timmy Gambin and his team for offering to host that. And here we all were in sunny Cyprus. And the other thing that we've initiated with support from the University of Oxford and Damien Robertson in particular is the Maritime Archaeological Graduate Symposium. We literally just closed the fourth one in the series, very kindly hosted online by Aix-Marseille University. This is a real opportunity for our scholars in the region and beyond, young scholars, early career students, to start promoting and presenting their work, building up networks in a sort of safe environment. And some really excellent papers came out of, well, all of them, but this year in particular was excellent. And you can find a lot of that material on the HFF website. And then one of the very exciting things that we've been doing sitting in our little respective offices is the launch of the Dive and Dig podcast. I have my colleagues, Kathy Giagrandi and Lauren Tidby, very much to thank for this, and also the support of Whistledown Public Productions, who were the production company that helped us launch this. And of course, Bethany Hughes, my co-presenter. We had a series of five initial, the first series, and then we've just finished the 6-part in-depth one. And we're hoping to do more in the coming year, engaging specialists and reaching, relatively large numbers of people. So please listen to this if you haven't, encourage your friends and family to listen as well. And then finally, I think these are just examples, really. I haven't got time to go into everything, but as Alison mentioned, it's the 50th anniversary of Honour's discovery of the Marsala Punic ship. And we've had a number of different projects, some research-based, some around the conservation and archiving. I should have added that was Aix-Marseille. And more recently, Lauren and her team have been building up this virtual exhibition with the support of Artist Media, which is now on the Google Arts and Culture platform. And it sort of also feeds into this amazing discovery that Claire Calcagno and Ella Costaningo made, the Phoenix manuscript that was an unpublished manuscript of honours. And all of that's leading towards this amazing virtual exhibition, which I would very much encourage you to come and go and have a look at. You can see the ship on the seabed, you can explore all the finds. So hopefully this is keeping maritime archaeology alive in the absence of face-to-face communication, or certainly it was. So thank you for listening to my bit. I hope this demonstrates the nature and scale of the growth of HFF activities in the last 10 years. Oh, things have gone out of order. Let's just get that one in. I think we've become more and more proactive, as demonstrated by the series of slides, and we're still very much mindful of the importance of dialogue and partnership with partners in the region. We're hoping to develop even more high-profile interdisciplinary collaborative projects, and I really think this is a very exciting point for maritime archaeology. There's lots to be done, and I think we have to thank this lady most of all for making it possible. And as part of the 10th anniversary, I thought, okay, brief overview by me. I think I'm pretty much stuck to time. And then hand over to some of the younger generation. I'm very happy to hand over to Dr. Nassim Brad from Lebanon, who will tell you about his research and his current role in HFF Lebanon and beyond. And then after that, as of the day before, Dr. Maria Michael, who I'm very happy to say has recently passed her PhD, and she will tell us about her research in Cyprus. And then finally, the very soon to submit and be doctored, Ziad Morsi from Egypt, all of whom have been scholars at Southampton. Sorry, no bias there whatsoever. And so I'm very much looking forward to hearing about their research and their experiences with the foundation and how that has made, hopefully, a positive difference to maritime archaeology in their regions. So I will stop sharing my camera. I'll mute myself, and then Nassim, I'll let you take over.
Thank you, Lucy. I'm just going to share. Perfect. Thank you, Lucy, and thank you everyone for attending today. It's been some years that I've been attending the annual lecture myself, so it's an honor to be here as a speaker this year. I'm just going to give some more details about what Lucy spoke about with regards to some projects going on in Lebanon, with a focus on my role, which is largely educational, and just talk a little bit about generally my journey with the HFF and how it kind of reflects a lot of the processes that are happening today in the country. So just to give a quick overview to my background, in 2015, I was offered the scholarship to attend the master's program at the University of Southampton, which, as you can see here, involved some of what we call experimental archaeology, where we're testing various tools to see the marks they make on timbers, and this will help us observe the same marks in the archaeological record. I continued into the PhD after this, also funded by the HFF, which I completed in 2020, in the middle of COVID, unfortunately. My thesis focused on the Roman port city of Beirut. So and you can see it here, it's along the central Levantine coast, the capital of modern day Lebanon. But my approach essentially was trying to combine a lot of known specific methodologies to provide a characterization of what we might call a supply chain in history. I focused primarily on wine and olive oil because they were very commercial goods in the ancient world. I mean, as they are today, wine and olive oil are still huge products in the Mediterranean. But they're very useful because the containers that were used to package them are very visible in the archaeological record. And they were distributed in a very high capacity. So my research essentially tried to provide an overall characterization of these sectors and see if we can actually start to answer questions about the colony as a whole. This involved a consideration of the natural environment, both maritime and terrestrial. So on the left, we have an image here of wind patterns from one of our colleagues that help us shed light on navigation in the region. I complemented a lot of these studies that were conducted in the past with characterization of the terrestrial landscape. So looking at things like soil type, topography, precipitation, temperature, to try and get an understanding of where might be the most ideal locations for production of these different crops, and were people actually following this logic. In order to actually see that manifest or not in the archaeological record, the next part was involved looking at the production sites that are observed in the hinterland of the colony. So you can see an example of one on the left. It's a basin. This one was used for the storage and the processing of wine. By understanding their location, how they might have connected to one another and the port of Beirut, we can start to build up an understanding of the initial production and context of these goods, and follow this up with their transportation and processing at the port city, which is by no surprise quite important to understand the supply chain of these products. So part of my thesis also involved performing the first comprehensive analysis of the Roman port city of Beirut. And finally, we now have a typology that was developed some years ago of containers that were produced specifically in Beirut and only in Beirut and sites within the region. This has allowed the opportunity to trace this specific container throughout the Mediterranean at other port sites. And this gives us an understanding of the range and volume of distributions. Essentially, we're kind of going from start to finish in the life cycle of, from a grape to someone consuming wine at a distant port site. The significance of this thesis is that it represents the first quantitative examination of a Lebanese port site in the Roman period, and involved some detailed statistical techniques. So performing regressions, for example, on different kinds of ceramics, which we can see on the right here, seeing if certain types based on their source were correlated, which might tell us, were certain port sites importing from two different port sites at a similar rate. It also involved, in certain cases, trying to understand the logic of traders. So do we see a drop in distributions, for example, based on geographical distance, or is something else going on there? These are kind of the questions that I posed in the thesis and looked for ways to try and answer them in each case. But the important part is that it's a replicable methodology that we can package and now apply to different coastal sites in the region. And ultimately, the goal is to try and answer a lot of these questions all along the Levantine coast to build up an inductive understanding of what's actually going on here, and ultimately maybe make some comments on societal economic rationale, or I've said here, or lack thereof, because a lot of times people don't really do what you think they're going to do, or they don't act economically rational, which makes it very difficult in the archaeological record. After completing this thesis, I joined officially the HFF Lebanon team. So I'm a part of the projects that are undertaken in Lebanon by the team, which is led by Dr. Sam'an. But my role is largely educational, but we'll have a look at that in a little bit. So essentially what the team does is, and here's just a few of the sites that Lucy mentioned earlier. It's in its primary function, it's an emergency response team, essentially, in the sense that when a site is under threat, or there is some research that needs to be conducted, then the team can provide the capacity to the Lebanese government to conduct these necessary visits, this necessary field work. In addition to this, there are also research-based projects that are being undertaken in collaboration with Lebanese and international academic and state institutions. And you can, there's many projects. It's outside the scope of this talk here to go through all of them, but you can access them on the Honor Frost Foundation website. But essentially, the team takes the project from start to finish in terms of envisioning it, developing the methodology, gathering data, processing data, and analyzing it and moving towards publication, which is very exciting because it's allowed us to explore a lot of previously unexplored sites that are in sore need of exploration. But my primary role at the moment is leading the MSCU program, the Marine Sciences and Culture program at the American University of Beirut, which is now it's in its third year. So Lucy spoke a little bit about it. It's a minor program housed within the Department of History and Archaeology at AUB, and there's also a scholarship that is offered to students from the Lebanese University, which has again proven to be really successful. It's expanded our scope and our reach as well. We have 5 courses currently. I'm just going to go through them quickly, but again, you can access all this information on the AUB website or the HFF website. There's an introductory course that just gets students kind of warmed up, if you will, to the idea of a multidisciplinary approach, looking at a landscape as a whole. There is a targeted course on marine geophysics, in which students learn about the tools and the techniques that are used to map the sea and ocean floor. We have a fieldwork course, which ironically we have not actually been able to run due to COVID. So we had to do a remote fieldwork course last year. But in essence, it is a practical course where students get experience in diving, conducting a coastal survey, and learning marine geophysical techniques. We also have 2 electives in addition to these. One, which is focused on the processing of and appreciation and value of maritime cultural heritage. And a new one, which is going to be given in spring semester, which I'm very excited about, which is a history of maritime economics that just goes over kind of the indices that we use to try and provide quantitative measures of how we can, make claims that an economy grew or subsided for a certain period of time. And I'm going to finish with just a quick overview of a project that I'm leading with my colleague Sayantani Niogi, which is the Beirut Port project. As was mentioned earlier, it was initially launched in an effort to support heritage management after the August 4th explosion. And it builds upon my own research and Dr. Sam'an's massive desk-based assessment of the Lebanese coast. Over time, it started to develop into a more holistic project and involved a lot of collaboration with the Lebanese government, which has proven to be quite successful. So here you can just see the scope of the project along the northern coast of Lebanon, which is the target of the, you can see here, unfortunately, the large hole, the crater caused by the August 4th explosion. After we started to get an understanding of the sheer magnitude of data that we were seeing, in the sense that there was a lot of published data, there's a lot of unpublished data, there's no general comprehensive repository where anyone can come and access all of this. So we realized that this would probably be the most valuable contribution we could make in this regard. So that's what we have achieved, which is creating a GIS, a Geographic Information System, that has spatially organized all of the sites that have been excavated in Beirut and provides a quick summary as to what was found there. It was done in collaboration with the DGA, which is very exciting, with the Lebanese government, because it provides capacity not just in our team, which is essentially a research team, but also for the government to actually start to process all of this archive data that exists, and has kind of opened the door to a new angle to really capitalize on. And that is that we have already a lot of data. So we have shown through the BPP that looking for collaborative and efficient ways to process this data has a lot of promise. And conducting these condition assessments, so actually going into the field and seeing the current status of these archaeological sites, also gives us a good understanding of the rate of preservation, or in certain cases, unfortunately, lack thereof, of these sites. And it's shown that we have a lot of room to provide targeted trainings to further these efforts as well. So this project is very exciting, and we hope to process results over the next few months. So look for big things happening. Thank you for your attention. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague now, Maria, and yep, I look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you, Nassim. Let's share my screen. So, good evening, everyone. Firstly, before starting my presentation, I would like also to express my gratitude to Honor Frost Foundation for giving me the opportunity to enhance my knowledge and my skills in maritime archaeology through various trainings, workshops, conference and underwater surveys, and also give me the chance today to present also to the annual lecture. And in this presentation, I will try briefly to present this journey with the HFF and explain the impact of all these projects and experience for me and hopefully my homeland, the small island of Cyprus. So my journey with HFF started in 2014 when the HFF awarded a bursary for me to attend the 5th International Congress on Underwater Archaeology. 2014 was a very difficult year for me because I was thinking to give up from the field of maritime archaeology, as I had I found very difficult obstacles throughout my academic career, and no professional and field work opportunities in maritime archaeology exist in Cyprus at that time. Consequently, the support of HFF at this moment and giving me the opportunity to present my research in a scientific international conference helped me to be confident again and believe that I can contribute with my knowledge and skills to the field of maritime archaeology in Cyprus. So in 2017, Mr. Glavkos Kariolu and I got a small HFF grant for the repair and maintenance of the replica of the Gerinia shipwreck, the Gerinia Liberty. And during this project, public and students had the opportunity to participate in theoretical and hands-on practical training, which helps them to understand the importance of experimental archaeology for learning about ancient seafaring, shipbuilding, and trade. Furthermore, the crew of the Gerinia Liberty also offered presentation at 27 elementary schools in an effort to engage the interest and imagination of young students in the field of maritime archaeology. Finally, experimental trips were organized with the support of HFF, but because of COVID, we stopped them, and we hope that soon we will have the opportunity to travel again. So my journey with the HFF continued, and in 2018, having secured an HFF doctoral scholarship, I started a PhD program at the University of Southampton under the supervision of Dr. Julian Whitewright, Dr. Anna Collar, and Dr. Jaco Weinstock. The PhD thesis, entitled To Fish or Not to Fish, the case study of fishing activity in Cyprus, attempts for the first time to gather all the available evidence for fishing in Cyprus in a single body of evidence. It examines the main indicators of fishing activity, which are the archaeological evidence of fishing technology and fish bone as samples recovered in a variety of archaeological sites in Cyprus and date from the Neolithic to early Christian period. So my research attempts to interpret correctly the archaeologically neglected aspect of fishery, which is an issue that firstly Honor Frost addressed in Cyprus when she attempted to distinguish 3 limestone fishing weights recovered in the archaeological site of Gideon from the similarly shaped stone anchors. So in 70s, Honor Frost proves through her study that there is a lack of a holistic approach to examine fishing in Cyprus during antiquity, something that my research achieved by developing a systematic interdisciplinary approach for recording the available evidence. The main outcomes of my research are, firstly, as you can see from the slide, the opinion that Cypriots did not engage with fishing activity over time seems to be naked, as the physical environment and the archaeological and faunal evidence from Cyprus determine the presence of fishing activity in its maritime landscape, as you can see from the map on this slide. According to the parallel study of archaeological evidence with iconographic, written, and ethnographic data, fishing methods which used in the past were reconstructed, and they can be classified to three major categories: the manual collection without tools, the passive fishing methods, and the active fishing methods. And finally, Cypriot fishers mainly conducted daily short local scale trips to explore both coastal and pelagic resources, and their resulting daily interaction with the maritime environment leads to the ongoing development of local maritime knowledge, which could in turn lead to the diachronic growth and preservation of fishing activity, as you can see from the map, as evidence of fishing activity has been recovered diachronically in the same area. Consequently, my research is a new contribution on the study of maritime archaeology in Cyprus, which is mainly focused on the shipwreck archaeology. Since I started my PhD in 2017, I also have the opportunity to attend numerous courses, present my work in various conferences, and participate in underwater projects supported by the HFF. But today I have chosen to present two of them as our time is limited. Firstly, I would like to share with you my experience during my participation in the 2 seasons of the underwater survey conducted in Dreamers Bay on the Akrotiri Peninsula in Cyprus, directed by Dr. Lucy Bloom and funded by the HFF. During 2018, we document the remains of the Asian breakwater, while in 2019 season, we confirmed that the eastern concentration of largely homogeneous ceramics was a shipwreck, as you can see from the map on this slide. Further anchor finds and extensive areas of ceramics on the seabed, as well as the tile wreck, highlight that further investigation is recommended in our future surveys. And at this point, I would like to thank Lucy Blue for giving me the opportunity to coordinate a part of this project with my colleague and friend, Carmen Obey, in the future. Furthermore, the importance of this project is not underlined only on the quality of its finds, but it's also a shallow area where trainings for Cypriot students interested in maritime archaeology can be conducted. Until now, 3 students from the University of Cyprus and 1 from the University of Southampton had the opportunity to take part in this in Dreamers Bay project and involved with whole process of an underwater project. Consequently, we hope that we will give this opportunity to many other students in the future. Furthermore, during my PhD life, as Lucy mentioned earlier, I had the opportunity to be a member of the Maritime Archaeology Graduate Symposium Committee. In 2019, we organized this symposium for the 2nd time at Southampton with the support of the HFF. And I had also the opportunity to edit and complete the online publication of the MAX 2019, which you can find it on the website of Honor Frost Foundation with the short report of the proceeding of the MAX 2020. Also, the available HFF bursaries during the MAX 2019 and 2020 gave the opportunity to 3 more Cypriot students and students from Syria, Egypt, and Lebanon to present their research in a friendly environment. And we will continue to give this opportunity to more students in the future, as in 2021, it was decided that a steering committee should be established to secure the continuation and success of this conference. So coming to 2021, the HFF supports my participation in the e-learning course, Underwater Mapping Methodology Geohazards, which will develop my professional skills in underwater and coastal mapping. My application in this training gave also the opportunity to create a new training grant that you can find more information about it in the HFF website, and you can apply for the, different courses that can give you the opportunity to gain more experience in the field of maritime archaeology. Consequently, it's clear through this brief presentation that without the endless moral and financial support of the HFF, I will not be able to gain all this knowledge and experience, and also will not be able to transfer and apply this knowledge in order to contribute to the development of maritime archaeology in Cyprus, which still needs to be developed. Honor Frost Foundation has already awarded several grants to Cypriot institutions, departments, and independent researchers in order to build and develop research and capacity in Cyprus. HFF supports a number of the Mare Lab projects of the University of Cyprus, as you can see from the slide. And also the HFF has provided a number of grants to the Department of Antiquities in Cyprus. As Lucy mentioned before, the Cyprus Coastal Assignment Project is the latest project, which is one of these projects that developed as a response to increasing development in the coastal zone, treating underwater and coastal heritage. Its first phase, which was mainly the data gathering, was complete in 2021. And we hope that the second phase, which includes detailed coastal surveys and final assignment, will start soon in order to develop a permanent underwater cultural heritage and unit within the Department of Antiquities, which still does not have a maritime section responsible for underwater project in Cyprus. So I hope with my knowledge and experience to contribute to the development of this section in the Department of Antiquities, which is the main body responsible for the management of the archaeological heritage of Cyprus. And also I hope my journey with the HFF will continue in the future, not only for my own career, but mostly to give opportunities to more Cypriot students, researchers interested in maritime archaeology, and also convince the public to respect, love, and protect their maritime culture. Thank you for your attention, and I will give the floor to my colleague, Ziad Morsi.
Thank you, Maria. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Maria, for your presentation, and thank you, Lucy, for bringing us all here today. My name is Ziad Morsi. I'm an HFF scholar, a PhD candidate at the University of Southampton, and a visiting lecturer at the Alexandria Center for Maritime Archaeology in Alexandria University. And tonight I will sail with you on a journey similar to what actually my colleague and friend Maria have laid out. It's actually crossing the paths with the Honor Frost Foundation during my journey as a maritime archaeologist. My journey started in the field of maritime archaeology back in 2009. And I will be sharing with you how the HFF had a tremendous impact on my personal career and life during the past decade, and hopefully during the future decades too. So let's back to my early days before the HFF. I graduated in 2009 from the Greco-Roman Archaeology Department at the Alexandria University. And on the same year, I started my professional work as a maritime archaeologist and the executive secretary of the Alexandria Center for Maritime Archaeology and Underwater Cultural Heritage. My work at the center gave me the opportunity to participate in a number of research projects, both inside Egypt and internationally, including the Motia underwater archaeological project back in 2010, 2011, in collaboration with the Soprintendenza del Mare in Sicily. And also during 2011 and 2012 with Dr. Lucy Blue and Athena Terkadas at the Montenegro Maritime Archaeological Research Project that was in collaboration with the University of Southampton. And this was like the start of my collaboration with the University of Southampton. That was led to the next year in 2013, the participation in the second Lloyd's Register Research Collegium, where I did my first interdisciplinary research about coastal ecocities at the University of Southampton. And on the same year, it was my first official involvement with the HFF through my dear friend, Dr. Lucy Sam'an, the current director of the HFF Lebanon office, when she invited me to be part of her team of archaeologists and divers to conduct an underwater survey at the peninsula of Amphi in northern Lebanon, in collaboration with Dr. Nadine Banayut Haroun of the University of Balamand. And since that year, my involvement with the HFF started growing annually, actually. So in 2015, after many years of planning with Professor Dr. Ahmed Khalil, he managed to get the first ever funding to the Center for Maritime Archaeology and Underwater Cultural Heritage from the HFF to start the first season of the Bagoush Underwater Survey. And Professor Khalil have already presented the project in the 9th annual HFF Annual Lecture. The recording is online for everybody who wants to go through it again. Since then, I've been a founding member of the teamwork on the site, and with the generous funding of the HFF, we've managed to continue work every year since 2015. 2016 was a pivot point of my career, actually, as I obtained my MA in Maritime Archaeology under the supervision of Dr. Ahmed Khalil and Dr. Lucy Blue, whom have always been my biggest supporters and mentors. And right after, on the same year, I've applied and obtained the second HFF PhD studentship, following the lead of my dear colleague, Dr. Umayma Deeb, who was the first one from Egypt to get a scholarship from the Honor Frost Foundation to pursue her PhD research at Flinders University in Australia. And on the same year, I've obtained the first HFF bursary to present my research at the 6th International Congress of Underwater Archaeology at the Museum of Western Australia, the ECOA 6. And since then, I have been a recipient of several HFF conference bursaries, including presenting at the next ECOA 7 in Helsinki in 2022. So my PhD research is a continuation of my master's research, which investigate the rise and decline of Egyptian Nile sailing boats using a mixed methodology of ethnographic, archival, and historical researches to better understand the socioeconomic and environmental factors that led to the decline of sailboats on the Nile in Egypt. This research, or this type of research, was never done in Egypt before, and it will act as a living archival of all Egyptian riverine traditional practices. And I'm currently, as Lucy have mentioned, finalizing the last chapter or so, and hoping that I will have my defense early 2022. In 2017, during my candidature at the University of Southampton, I was able to return to Egypt on several occasions and participate in other HFF-funded projects, such as the Sadana Island Shipwreck Project, again, collaborating with Dr. Ahmed Khalil and my colleagues at the CMA UCH to revisit an 18th century merchant shipwreck that was studied back in the 90s by the Institute of Nautical Archaeology, and we visited it 20 years later, and currently a bigger research project is being built with the support of HFF to work on the shipwreck and try and extract new data about the ship itself and its construction. And as I mentioned earlier, and as Maria have mentioned previously, I got my first conference bursary in 2016, and along with my colleagues from the University of Southampton, University of Oxford, we've built on the idea conceptualized by Dr. Lucy Blue and Dr. Damian Robinson to establish the Maritime Archaeology Graduate Symposium. And I was able to also attend a number of conferences where I've presented a number of papers and posters from under the Mediterranean Conference to the ISBSA 15 and also the ISBSA 16. And also during one of my visits to Alexandria, Professor Ahmed Khalil gave me the opportunity to present my PhD research at the Bibliotheca Alexandrina, and the event that led to yet another HFF collaboration and my very first own standalone research project, which is the TRADIGI, or the Egyptian Traditional Riverine Tangible and Intangible Heritage Rescue Project, with the acronym TRADIGI, and where I've collaborated with my teammates in recording arguably the last living wooden sailboat on the valley of the Nile in Egypt, and also its community and the tradition around this boat. And here I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Abdel Nasser Galal for all his help, and to thank all of my teammates for supporting this research project during the past year, or during the past 2 years, actually. The project also included training for the next generation of maritime ethnographers and maritime archaeologists who are now leading their own projects in Egypt. And I am very proud of collaborating with some of them in other HFF-funded projects. This project was back in March 2020, and since then, since I came back to Egypt, I couldn't return back to Southampton due to COVID-19 restrictions. But however, having the support of HFF during these past 2 years, I managed to keep on going during these hard times. And thus, most of my involvement was online, and I was able to participate in a number of HFF-sponsored talks and seminars, including the NAS COVID talks. Thanks, Mark, for invitation, and also including today's talks. And but also, once the COVID-19 restrictions were eased, we managed to do another successful season at Bagoush with Professor Ahmed Khalil, and I was able to join my colleagues in Zadar to present our research, the TRADIGI research. And thanks to the HFF, this was the biggest participation from Egypt ever in the ISBSA in all its history. And this type of exposure and experience was the main issue facing maritime archaeologists in Egypt, including myself. And during 2021, I became an HFF visiting lecturer at the Center for Maritime Archaeology in Alexandria University, helping with the teaching of new students, mentoring researchers, and working alongside with old and new colleagues in the whole region, not just in Egypt. So far, in the last decade, the HFF has supported a total number of 17 research projects. We can add that it is 18 by today, not including other that you might have already got funded during this round. 4 PhD scholarships, including 3 from my own class, my dear colleague, Dr. Umayma Al-Deeb and Ms. Nisreen Ghali, and myself, plus my dear colleague, Nuran Al-Sharif, who's currently in Southampton, finalizing her PhD. My lovely partner, May Ghanem, was lucky to get a chance to be funded for her MA in the University of Southampton, as well as getting a grant to do the GIS and remote sensing diploma at the University of Ulster. So far, the HFF has sponsored 6 Egyptian MA scholarships at the Center for Maritime Archaeology, including 3 dedicated to the Department of Underwater Antiquities at the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities. And that builds on the capacity building that the HFF is aiming at in the whole region. And currently there are more than 25 bursaries given to scholars and early career researchers from Egypt to attend trainings, conferences, and seminars that will help them develop their future careers at maritime archaeology, and that help showcasing the brilliant research being conducted by national archaeologists in Egypt and in the region. Finally, as we approach the end of a decade, in collaboration with Honor Frost Foundation, the future still holds a lot, including collaboration that we just got funding for with Rakuda Foundation for Art and Heritage to record traditional practices in El Max fishing district in Alexandria. And stay tuned for more details about this project that will be published on the HFF website soon, and hopefully other future HFF funded projects in collaboration with the Department of Underwater Antiquity, the Alexandria Center for Maritime Archaeology, and the University of Southampton, and other bigger regional collaboration projects with my fellow colleagues from Lebanon, Cyprus, and Syria. And with that, I would like to thank you all for listening, and have a good night.
Well done, everybody. That was amazing. Zia, do you want to stop sharing your screen, maybe? Thank you, love. Well, that was really, I don't know about my bit, but you were brilliant. And I think I want to thank you all very, very much. There were numerous images of much younger versions of all of us, including me. But most of all, I think it just really showcased incredible, the breadth of research, the diversity, the sort of spin-offs and implications of all the things that you've taken part in. You know, it really showcases the range of things that HFF supported and what an impact and difference that has made. And also the individual dedication that you've shown, and other HFF scholars. I mean, regrettably, you know, I chose 3. But there are many others. These are pretty good 3. So I'm really, really proud of you all, and thank you so much for that contribution. I think it really does demonstrate the breadth and reach and scope of maritime archaeology, but particularly what all the exciting things that are happening in the region. And well, I can pull up my hat and retire now, I reckon, because it's over to you guys. I'm wondering if I'll have a quick look at the chat, if we have any questions. There's lots and lots of congratulations. and have a look in the Q&A as well. If there's anything, no particular questions as yet. Maybe Ziad, you could tell us a little bit more about the LMAX thing, because I don't think even the trustees are aware of that. That's something that's happened very recently, and I think it showcases another aspect. I mean, Nassim touched on, you know, the rescue work that we do through HFF Lebanon, which is really important, but I think this is another type of rescue.
Yeah, so basically, LMAX district is one of the 3 biggest districts of Alexandria that involve fishing for the last at least 100 years. So LMAX district has been under kind of remodeling of the area, including the building of a mega harbor of Alexandria. That means a lot of the traditions that has been going there for the past 100 or 200 years is gonna be vanished. And this is why myself and my colleagues in Rakuda Foundation, we reached out to the Honor Frost Foundation to fund this emergency rescue project, where we deploy a number of researchers in LMAX to record everything. And by everything, I mean only different traditions, fishing techniques, boat building tradition, and even intangible heritage like songs, myths of the area, and also all the cooking and all the different meals, the Mediterranean, you know, the Mediterranean different meals and cooking the different types of fish, and all of these sorts of intangible heritage that was neglected for the past decades. So we are hoping in the next few months actually to be able to collect and have a big kind of a community archive with all the data from the field, and hopefully that will lead for a bigger HFF sponsored project next year to explore this archive more in collaboration with the community, because that would be also bringing the community of LMAX. We already have a lot of people from the community collaborating with us. They are all very happy with our participation with them. We even have one of the new MA students in the University of Alexandria in the center who was born in LMAX, and her family is living in LMAX. So she is a key person towards getting access to the community and talking with old people who have been living their lives there, and also their families have been living there. And hopefully this will also link to other projects like the Strategy one, and also other projects in the region that is dealing with tangible and intangible heritage and rescue project. And hopefully we can find a kind of an umbrella to put all these projects together, at least the Egyptian ones, and then eventually we can expand it on a regional base. So yeah.
Fantastic, thank you. And I love the other added bonus of that is that sort of identification and recognition of the importance of maritime cultural heritage, you know, for people who are... You mentioned fish though. I'm sure Maria would like to butt in and make sure that you absolutely make a clear identification of what type of fish, as we know that having recently been involved with her Viva, this was a challenge that you faced, Maria, as we know. I'm curious to explore a bit more of that. I mean, the work that you did was remarkable, Maria. I really, I was very happy and proud to be part of your examining process. But one of the things that really came out of it was, you know, what we can do next, and maybe some of the particular sites that offer more opportunities to understand these processes. Have you got any more thoughts on, you know, where you might target more research, or some of the sites that offered more information that you could really get your teeth into? Because I know the problem with fish is that people tend to ignore them or not recognize them or don't think they're important.
Yes, they think that they are not important and they cannot give us a lot of information, but at the end, it's an evidence that can give us information about consumption, about the fishing methods, about everything. Regarding the sites that I'm thinking that we can extend and expand the research, I think because my research was diachronically, from the Neolithic period, I think it's better to focus in a site that has also fishing gear and fish remains together. The Cape Apostolos Andreas at the north coast of the island, and also from the late Bronze Age period, which is the second chronological case study that I had my research focus. It's the Halas Sultan de Ke, where we also have evidence from fishing gear and fish remains as well that can give us more information about the exploitation patterns and stuff. And then at the Roman period, I think the Amathus, because we have the underwater environment and also the terrestrial, and we can see evidence from both environment and how they preserve and how, yes.
Fantastic. Well, let's hope the HFF can be more involved with that, and also bringing together this amazing database and repository so that people can access it. I think that's maybe in response to Miranda's question about publication, you might have a word with her. I can't see any more questions. So what about you, Nassim? You've built up all this understanding of Beirut, the port, the potential, and now you've got this incredible database. Where are you going to put your spade in first?
Well, I want to look into archives, I think, is the next. So we've been focusing a lot on field work and trainings and, you know, getting in the water or on land. But this project has kind of shown we have so much data available and we don't have to do it ourselves. So if we can actually figure ways to work collaboratively with all these different institutions, and especially the Lebanese government, then we will actually start to see a much higher rate of publication. So our problem is not that we haven't conducted work at a lot of Lebanese sites. It's that we have conducted work, but we don't know exactly how much and where and what's been published and what hasn't been published. So I think that's kind of the future for now, at least.
Absolutely. No, data is key. And I completely agree with you. And I think that's just to, Peter Fisk has asked a very interesting question, which I guess it's down to me to answer, but anybody else is welcome to have a bash at this, including the trustees, I hasten to add. It's the 20th anniversary of HFF. What are our aspirations and vision? I'm struggling with from one year to the next, but I think that this, you know, just very briefly, the issue of data collection, I mean, you touched on this as well, Ziad. It's really important that we build an understanding of the resource in its many dimensions, and that we're able to put that on a platform that is easily accessible, obviously with the authority's permission, but it also can communicate with each other so that we can search on similar platforms. I think that's one thing. Another is obviously the continuation of supporting and developing careers of wonderful people like we've heard from today, but also trying to find means of embedding them. Sorry, I talk as if you're like inanimate objects or something, but I don't mean it like that. But, you know, having a future in the region in terms of maritime archaeology, and we're already seeing that with Ziad and Nassim and of aspirations for Maria's career. I think that's really important, because ultimately HFF, maybe at the 20th anniversary, will be okay, it's over to you now, really, because that is the real achievement, is to, you know, have regional stewardship with regional experts, regional capacity and regional research agendas, not exclusive of international, you know, involvement or collaboration across the region as well. And I think that would really make, you know, a huge success. And we're working towards that, I hope. I think this has very much demonstrated that. I could probably go on that one, but I won't. Does that answer your question, Peter? I'm just going to see if, oh, hang on, there's something here. For everything fishing. No, it's the thing's moving. How am I supposed to read it if it's moving, Mark? People might be interested to hear that the deadline of the submission of the abstracts and early career funding requests for the next Ocean Pass conference. This is from Anthony. Hello, Anthony. Has been extended to 21st of January. So that's over to you, Maria. It sounds like there's an involvement there for you to get involved with Ocean Past and Ocean Decade, maybe. Nassim, who is publishing the sadly lost, oh, this is a bit of a controversial one. Thank you, David, for that. Slipway from the centre of Beirut. Well, over to you, Nassim.
Well, yeah, it's a difficult one because there are newspaper articles that discuss it. In terms of what material we have, I can speak honestly and just say I haven't actually seen the archives, so I'm not sure what exists currently. If there is material in the archives, then that potentially could be analyzed in some. So this is kind of the potential that we could actually reach theoretically, but I can't give too many details because I haven't seen the archives myself for that site, unfortunately. But yeah, that was it appears to have been something quite significant, I'll say.
Absolutely. Next step, I think all of this is about stealth movement, isn't it? And that's how you work, you know, in trust and collaboration with people. And I think you've been making amazing inroads, and also, you know, really developing the relationship with the DGA, which is so important, and the you know, the younger members of the DGA team working in collaboration. I think actually, just to add to my list, Peter, that collaboration is absolutely critical. I'm wondering if we've got any more questions. Do any of the scholars or HFF employees or centre, however you want to label yourself now, do you have any questions? No, okay. Well, we've had an excellent session, and I want to thank you personally for the contributions you've made. And now I'm going to pass over to the chair of the Honor Frost Foundation, who opened the annual lecture, the 10th annual lecture. Alison, back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucy. I would like to thank, first of all, Nassim, Maria and Ziad. You've told us about your wonderful journeys with the Honor Frost Foundation. For us, the trustees, it's really inspiring. It makes us want to go on funding more and more of you, and we love doing it. But you've all told a lovely story about how your work has been supported by Lucy, and without Lucy, we wouldn't be where we are. I just want to thank her too. Thank you all very much for coming. This has been a major, major event. I hope Honor is beaming down and looking at how far her funds are being stretched, how well they've been invested, and how many projects we're going to do in the future, because it's going to be so exciting for the next 10 years. Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Lucy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.